You're listening to the Back Porch Talk podcast. Danny and Jason had many discussions and debates on the back porch while making pivotal investment moves with assets. That's right, with trading cards. They welcome you to the back porch and right into those discussions about current sports news with a fresh and unique twist. So come on and join us. Welcome to the Back Porch Talk podcast. I'm your co-host, Jason.
It's your co-host, Danny.
And we have a fun-filled show for you today. We're going to give you our NFL Week 14 reactions, talk a little bit about the NBA, and we have an interesting trading card scenario for you. But first, to our Week 14 NFL reactions. Mine's going to be very short and sweet. Green Bay Packers went ahead and beat the Detroit Lions. And again, Aaron Rodgers had a very good game where he passed for 290 yards, threw for 3 touchdowns. Great thing in this particular game, though, was the fact that Devontae Adams, obviously, he had 7 catches for 115 yards and a touchdown. But Marquez Valdes-Scantling had a very good game, targeted 6 times, caught the ball 6 times, had 85 yards and for a touchdown. So I think his confidence is definitely increasing, and maybe he's the actual number 2 wide receiver as opposed to Allen Lazard, who only had 2 catches for 19 yards. We'll see, but it seems like the confidence is growing within Marquez Valdes-Scantling. I think that the Green Bay Packers, there was no fear of the Lions really, in my opinion, overall winning the game. My interest, though, with the Packers is going to be when they play the Tennessee Titans. That's where I believe the run defense is going to be exposed very heavily when they face up against Henry. I believe Henry's going to run for about 185 yards and 2 touchdowns easily. This Saturday, the Packers will play Carolina Panthers, then the Titans, and then wrap up, I believe, against the Bears. But I think the game against the Titans is going to be one that will definitely expose the Green Bay Packers run defense. I do believe Aaron Rodgers is leading in the MVP run. I believe he's leading in the MVP run and race against Mahomes. Mahomes is a very close second. You could really call him 1A, 1B. We'll see how the last 3 games go. Aaron Rodgers is my MVP for the league. This NFL week was interesting. The Steelers lost again. The Steelers have had to play a lot of games in a matter of a short amount of time. They probably won't get the number 1 seed. I can see the Chiefs being that number 1 seed in the AFC now. For those of you who don't know, there will be 7 teams from each conference in the actual playoffs. The number 1 seed is the only team that's going to have that first playoff week bye, and then everybody else plays. So I see, honestly, the Chiefs being that number 1 seed. But we have 3 weeks left. Anything can happen. Lastly, that Baltimore Ravens Cleveland Browns game on Monday night was a treat. Baker Mayfield showed me a little something there in terms of really competing. I think the Cleveland Browns are for real. I think they have an interesting running offense that is really conducive to the playoffs. Baker Mayfield is just going to, do enough to manage the game. I think if he battles back and competes, then that Cleveland Browns team is very interesting. What say you, Danny?
So, Jason, I was actually going to touch on that Baltimore-Cleveland game as well. So I'll just follow that and then get to my Atlanta Falcons. And with the Browns, their offensive line got a little banged up in that game, and that's their strength. So if their running game is going like it was the other night, then they have a good shot. But that defense, Lamar Jackson and them went ham on them. Now Lamar looks a little more like Lamar did last season. Mm-hmm. He's had a couple good games here where it seems like he's getting his confidence, and I wouldn't want to see Baltimore in the playoffs. They're a dangerous team. It's going to be very intriguing in the AFC, I think, more than the NFC, because there are a lot of teams that play very similar styles because they run the ball, and that's their primary, versus like the Chiefs. They're more passing. But if you look at the Titans, the Colts, Cleveland, Baltimore, Buffalo is in between. Josh Allen's been throwing a little bit more now, but if you look at that, there's a lot of running teams. So ball control, clock management are going to be very key, and any turnovers you'll be doomed. So looking forward to the playoffs, like you said, in a couple of weeks. So we'll see how these seedings play out. Now to my Atlanta Falcons. It was the Super Bowl of the toilet bowl. My Atlanta Falcons faced the Los Angeles Chargers this past week, and it was a duel. And it ended in the fashion I thought it would between these two teams. For those of you who watched, Atlanta had the ball, driving down the score. Matt Ryan throws an interception. And as a Falcons fan, now I'm like, all right, we're playing for draft position. So I'm like, all right, cool. Chargers, go ahead. Just get us out of our misery. Let us get out of LA and let us go back to Atlanta. Lo and behold, Justin Herbert throws an interception. So I'm like, all right, here we go. Got to cheer for my guys to get this victory. Matt Ryan throws another interception. Justin Herbert and team go down, kick a field goal, game over. Lost 20-17. So it's one of those games, like I said, where it's like, all right, if we're going to lose, let's just get better draft position now at this point. And without Julio, who I think they might as well just shut down for the rest of the year, there's no need to play him anymore. What's the point? Matt Ryan just doesn't look right. Ridley had a really good game, 100-plus yards again. He got banged up again in that game, his ankle. So it's one of those things, man, where it's to a point where you just want to evaluate talent, see what they have, and just get this over with. So we have Tampa this week, Kansas City next week, Tampa to finish the season. So fellas, just finish healthy. I'm obviously cheering because these are two divisional games, but it's a wrap, Jay. It's a wrap.
To the NBA. And there's just a whole lot happening in NBA right now. The NBA is on the verge of starting its regular season, starting on Tuesday. There's just a whole lot happening, man. But first, we have to start with none other than the reigning two-time league MVP and defensive player of the year, Giannis, who has signed the Supermax to stay with the Milwaukee Bucks 5 years for $228 million. And that fifth year is an option. So he can actually opt out after the fourth year. I think for Milwaukee fans, it's a sigh of relief for him to really sign that Supermax deal. But I'll say this, though, man. This Giannis story is just a very heartwarming story for him to and his family to struggle in another country, that being Greece. And there's been several reports, and even Giannis has indicated just how poor they were, how he really battled to become the superstar that he is today. Not only battled, but how hard he worked. And just that work ethic alone, man, that's just really just heartwarming, and it's a welcome sigh of relief that nothing is given to you. You have to work hard for it. I'm so happy that, one, he's getting his money. Sigh of relief to see a superstar really talk about his home and his family, him wanting to do right by the city.
Yeah, Jason, I agree. I thought it was good for the NBA as well that he stayed in Milwaukee, just to keep a competitive balance, right? I know it's hard to manage these days just due to free agency and things like that, but at least it gives them an opportunity here to try to win a championship with a superstar, small market. It opened up other doors as well for other teams to say, all right, he signed, now let's get to James Harden. So that's where I think, too, it resolved some of that going on, because a lot of teams are holding out hope they had a chance to sign him. Would it have been intriguing to see him in a different uniform? Of course. I think him being here in the small market, it does well for the NBA and this market here in Wisconsin. So,
and let me just add to that, Danny. So on Giannis's Instagram post here, here's what he says. "This is my home. This is my city. I'm blessed to be able to be a part of the Milwaukee Bucks for the next 5 years. Let's make these years count. The show goes on. Let's get it." And again, congratulations, Giannis, on your contract. And Danny, you alluded to James Harden. This whole drama with James Harden and the Houston Rockets organization is just something that I think the Bucks fans, well, some Bucks fans doesn't want. Now, there's some other Bucks fans who actually wouldn't mind seeing James Harden in a Bucks uniform. fans, go ahead and listen to our previous podcast on about Harden for Milton, DiVincenzo, certain trade scenarios, including Harden. So there are some fans who would do that trade in a heartbeat. And they may be just thinking about the actual name James Harden, not necessarily about the fit of James Harden in the system and even in the culture that Giannis is really trying to build in Milwaukee. But let's get back to this James Harden Houston Rockets organization drama, man. So there's a report that has come out about James Harden and the things that, he kind of has control over in the Houston Rockets organization. So there's this article done by the four-letter network, that being ESPN, Tim McMahon, and in it there's a quote here. Apparently, there's three words that's summed up by a former staffer: whatever James wants. Now, if that doesn't just really prick your ears up about the drama, I don't know what does, man. Look, and listen to this, man. So apparently, James Harden has some power within the organization. In the article, it says, and I quote, "Unless they were on the front end of a back-to-back set, it was essentially a sure thing that the Rockets stayed overnight or even an extra day after games in Los Angeles, Phoenix, and other road cities that rank among Harden's favorite stops. If the Rockets had 2 or 3 days between games, it was a good bet Harden would call for an off day and charter a private jet to party in Las Vegas or another city. He always gets an excused absence from the first practice after the All-Star break for the same reason." I've said this before, and this was when the whole Chicago Bulls documentary came out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you remember when we talked about how Dennis Rodman went to Vegas, he needed a break. Jordan had to go get Dennis Rodman. And you remember when I said it would have been awesome to have seen that, because that could be a show in itself. Mm-hmm. Hey, man, I think what Harden is doing on these off days, going to Vegas and chartering flights to go, a private jet, first of all, to go to these various places, man, that could be a show in itself, man. Does any organization want that drama?
I would say, not knowing the ins and outs of some of these organizations, how many other star players had this treatment that we're not aware of? James Harden, I don't think, is the first.
I can see a LeBron having that type of treatment, but LeBron has 4 rings?
It wasn't 2 because Houston wanted to win so bad, and they were that close, right? They were very close a couple times in the last couple of years against Golden State, where they fell apart. Where then you look at, say, did some of that or off the court activity end up costing James Harden and the Rockets in the end in the playoffs, where that fatigue kicked in? Not only him playing all those minutes, but also if he was doing allegedly all of these other things, did that wear him down?
Yeah. I could see fatigue set in. It was a playoff series against the Golden State Warriors, that last game, and I recall he just didn't have enough in the tank.
He's not the first, right? And he won't be the last. Snowballed on him, where they gave him his first thing.
Great.
They gave him an inch, he took a foot. Gave him another inch, he took another foot. And they just let it snowballed on them. Some of this has to fall on the organization for allowing it to happen and not checking it.
I agree. Well, here's the thing, Danny. When LeBron James was in Miami and he was wanting to do a whole lot of extra stuff, stay another day, or fly here and there separate with his entourage, or allegedly.
Yeah.
And there were reports out of Miami where Pat Riley wasn't having that.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't having that at all. So I'm wondering if a trade happens with James Harden, would it be more prudent? Would it be better for James to be in a hard run culture like a Miami Heat, and where you have to show up in shape, because James Harden does not look like he is in shape in the first preseason game, and you work hard, and you have Jimmy Butler there, and Jimmy Butler will not have it. He will definitely get in you. So I'm wondering if that other team is that of like the Miami Heat, because I know there are reports about the Philadelphia 76ers and the Brooklyn Nets. I believe the Milwaukee Bucks have already said, man, they're not interested in James Harden. I'm wondering if that other team is the Miami Heat.
I think it may be a blessing in disguise if he did go to Miami from a structural standpoint. The nightlife is going to be there.
Man,
So
listen,
that's
it's
the
gonna be so
downside.
many.
That's the downside.
Oh my
That's
gosh,
the
man.
downside of Miami. With if James is partying as much as they're saying, Miami from a nightlife standpoint may impact him, but he's falling in line with what Riley and the organization is doing. It may be a benefit for him to prolong his career, possibly.
That Miami culture could outweigh him being in strip clubs or shoe modeling establishments or whatever, because the whole purpose is an NBA championship. The Miami Heat was right there. They were in the finals in a unique situation, that being in the NBA bubble. So I think Pat Riley, the fact that he has multiple rings as a coach, as a top executive, I think that would really intrigue James Harden. So we'll see. We'll see. And then we have an interesting trading card scenario. What we have, Danny?
So tonight's trading card scenario, Jason, is Stephon Marbury's 1996 Topps Chrome rookie card for Kyrie Irving's 2012 Hoops rookie card. Quick bios: Stephon Marbury was the number 4 pick out of Georgia Tech by the Milwaukee Bucks and ended up being traded to the Minnesota Timberwolves. And he played 13 NBA seasons. He didn't have any NBA titles, 2 All-NBAs. He averaged 19 points, 7 assists, 3 boards, and a steal, 2-time All-Star, 2-time All-NBA. One unique item about Stephon Marbury is he ended up playing in China and had 3 titles with the Beijing Ducks. For Kyrie, he was the number 1 pick by the Cleveland Cavaliers in 2011 out of Duke. He's played 9 NBA seasons. He has 1 NBA title, 2 All-NBAs. He's averaged 22 points, 5 assists, 3 boards, and a steal. He was Rookie of the Year and 6-time All-Star. So, Jason, on the back porch, have these 2 cards. Which card do you want in your portfolio?
Look, man, I think the fans know where I'm going with this. Stephon Marbury had a very interesting college career. Stephon Marbury played 36 games for the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. In one of those games, he actually played Allen Iverson. Although Allen Iverson outduked him, it was a very competitive matchup. And so I highly encourage fans to go out to YouTube and look at the highlights. The fact that Marbury really competed against Allen Iverson, obviously one of the greats, it's a huge comparison to what Kyrie Irving did for the Duke Blue Devils, where he only played 11 games. Now, granted, he had a foot injury that sidelined him, but he only had 11 games. So one can say, well, he only played 11 games and he was the number 1 overall pick in the draft. But I say this, I mean, and if you look at his highlights in those games at Duke, I mean, the handles were bananas. Stephon Marbury, and you mentioned it in your opening there, played a number of seasons in the NBA, tumultuous ending to his NBA career with regards to some controversy or alleged controversy. But then he goes to China, and he does this thing in China and where he wins 3 championships. Stephon Marbury is going to be a Hall of Famer, primarily because this is considered the Basketball Hall of Fame. This not the NBA Hall of Fame, but the Basketball Hall of Fame. The fact that he has won 3 rings, my understanding, he has a statue in China. The fact that he has done that, and basketball is a global sport, Marbury will be in the Hall of Fame. So many things. I remember growing up when Marbury came out, everybody was like, man, he can ball, and he could definitely ball. Like, again, the fact that he played the likes of Allen Iverson in college and many other greats is outstanding. But we had to think about some of the other things that Marbury had done. Starbury shoes. A lot of kids obviously wanted the high-end shoes, but those high-end shoes cost $100 or so for many, not affordable. But the Starbury shoes, which would be sold out of Stephen Barry's, when Stephen Barry's existed, they were affordable. And that was actually led by Marbury. We got to think about that.
Mm-hmm.
We also have to think about there's this Netflix documentary called A Kid from Coney Island, which is primarily a documentary on Stephon Marbury. And what I'm just saying, it's in that documentary. And it's very, very interesting. And it's really a documentary because as things happen, obviously he's filming.
Mm-hmm.
He ultimately films his last season playing in China. In our culture, there are very few film directors that really stands out. One in particular, Spike Lee. And a lot of us remember that 1998 film, He Got Game, with Jesus Shuttlesworth as the main character, Ray Allen as the main character. And we have to think about the storyline. What was the motivation for that storyline? None other than Stephon Marbury. The fact that a whole film was made off of Stephon Marbury, that takes it to a whole nother level because he was the truth. He was Mr. Basketball in New York.
Yep.
And that is huge considering who's come out of New York. I'll just say this, Danny. Kyrie is a very good player. Injury prone.
Mm-hmm.
Very much so injury prone. He's injured in college, injured in the pros. Obviously, he hit the game-winning shot in Game 7 against the Golden State Warriors over Steph. But man, 3 championships over in China. The cultural impact that Stephon Marbury has had, not only here in the States with the Starbury shoes, but what he's done over in China. So with that, I can tell a story with a card, and therefore I'm going with Stephon Marbury. I would want Stephon Marbury's card.
This one was tough for me because I think back on Stephon Marbury's career. It kind of mirrors what Kyrie, in a way. It's very similar as far as Stephon Marbury had it made playing with Kevin Garnett in Minnesota, but they couldn't coexist. They could have had a good thing going on with him being young, KG being young. They just couldn't get the ego thing under control. Where then he demanded he had to go or KG had to go. So he left and KG stayed in Minnesota. And then he bounced around the league where it was always this expectation that Stephon Marbury was going to take him to the next level wherever he went. But he never lived up to that from the NBA perspective. And I never could get wrap my arms around why. As quick as he was, his game was just very comparable. You think of like Iverson, they all came out of that same ilk. Very quick, great handle, could shoot, but he never could. It was just something about him that he couldn't get over the hump in the NBA, which then he eventually figured out in China. But people lose sight of that, and I wish that would have happened when he was in the NBA to reflect his true talent that he had, and it may be minimized. I don't see it as being minimized because watching basketball is basketball. He's not playing against a whole bunch of scrubs in China when he played. And then I look at Kyrie, and Kyrie's handle is, as we were thinking about this scenario, he's a unicorn that way. His handle is ridiculous. His game is ridiculous. He can get his shot off at any point in time, but it's the other stuff that plagues him. And he's, like you say, he's been injured a lot. He had a similar scenario with LeBron. You have LeBron James right there, and you don't want to be there because you want to stand on your own, which I can understand from an ego perspective. But how many more championships could they have possibly won if they could have been aligned on one goal? Which I think similar back to, like I said, with Marbury and Garnett. So it's one of those things where now Kyrie's bouncing around the league. He was in Boston. Now he's in Brooklyn. So he has another great opportunity with the superstar, with KD, to make things happen. So I'm curious how this season goes. But then I look at these cards. I'm going to go with Stephon Marbury's card just based on the history I have with him. I don't know what Kyrie's career is going to go. It could be another launching point here from Brooklyn And then I may change my mind and say, I want Kyrie's car. You got to be adaptable in the trading car game, Jason. You know how this goes.
Thank you for joining us at Back Porch Talk Podcast. You can also join us on Twitter by tweeting us at @back_podcast. For more information, you can go to our website, which is backporchtalkpodcast.com. You can also email us at backporchtalkpodcast@gmail.com. Again, thank you for joining us, and remember that there's enough hate in the world, so go ahead and spread a little love.